So I would like to welcome Joydeep Goswami sir. He is Executive Vice President of Human Resource Team. So sir, are you there?
I am there. Do you want my video to come up or do it without the video?
Sir,
Sir,
if you
please
switch
with
on
the
your video,
video.
it will be very good.
Okay, if I do the video, two things would happen. One is bandwidth taken will be more and people will get a shock because of my bald head. But anyway, I warned you in advance.
So we will be happy to see you.
Okay, hello all of you.
Hello, sir.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
You
you're
are.
audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, actually, in fact, Shiny ma'am spoke to me just about, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes back saying that,
Yes.
can you just address the students? And I said, what is the batch? And she said, psychology. I said, oh my God, psychology. Mane to bhoy lage, shuni bhoy lage actually. So anyway, we'll see what best we can do. But just for my understanding, Shiny ma'am, I was trying to actually contact you, the team members and students that we have on board now. These are all they're in masters or undergraduate. I mean,
They are UG as well as PG, sir.
okay, so Mane, basically, with due respect to all the PG students, because you obviously know about 4.5 times more than I do. So, the faux pas that I make, are pardonable. But anyways, from a very HR perspective, I had joined NSHM way back in 2009, and in fact, those early years, first 4 or 5 years that I was there with NSHM, possibly was one of the best times that we all faced, and it was really lovely, and so many things that we did. And thereafter, because of work commitments and all, I had to move on. Although I had never really left NSHM, but then I wasn't physically present and looking after HR, so to say. But now I'm back. Of course, I have my other work also going on, but I'm trying to help out in what way we can. And it's really a privilege and a pleasure to, be back in NSHM. I am just 2 days old now in this organization because I rejoined 2 days back. And it's really nice to meet all of you. And although I'm a little scared, but I think I'll, start off on something very elementary. I am in a profession which is called human resources, and I have been a HR person all my life. And I think the only thing that I know in life is, I know how to talk to people. I know how the society runs, and I know my flaws. So because I know my flaws, I guess I do have an inkling on human nature a little bit, and that has helped me in the last 54 years and 2 days of my life. So in fact, it's been 54 years and 2 days now. So anyway, um, all of you, I mean, since you're psychology students, I think all of you know, and my numbers may not be 100% accurate, but what little that I recall is, we have 5 senses. Everybody knows that. And each of those 5 senses, produce maybe about 11 million bits of information, I guess, per second. I mean, the MSc students would be able to corroborate that. I am just talking from my past knowledge. I think it was about 11 million bits that we talk about per second is what the kind of information the 5 senses of the human body can take in. And that's dealt with by what we know as the limbic system. All of you know about that. Now, out of those 11 million bits of information, I think only about how much? 40 bits, I guess, per second is passed on to the neocortex. And that is exactly where conscious processing happens. So we are talking about, thinking, planning, etc. We are just talking about maybe 40 bits per second of information being processed out of 11 million bits of information that the five senses get. And that means, and this is exactly where HR comes in, that means 99.9% of every single bit of information that comes to our five senses is only subconsciously processed. Limbic system, works on the subconscious mind. Neocortex works on the conscious mind, which we all know. So if you look at the ratio, 99.9% of all the information that hits the human body is processed by the limbic system. So what does that mean for us? I mean, tomorrow when you become trained psychologists, I think your entire career, your entire treatment of your so-called subjects will depend on this bit of information, that 99% of all inputs are subconsciously processed. And if that be the case, you can imagine how strong the subconscious mind is. And I will deviate a little bit and use my personal experience to actually say why that's a fact. And then of course I'll try to tell you why I'm saying all these things, because I want to finally link it with maybe what your course will do and how you will be reacting with other people and also. Okay, I am 54 years old now. And although there was a point of time when I was also young, like all of you, I was in college. At that point of time, I used to represent the country in karate. I'm a 6th Dan black belt. I still teach karate now. And in karate, I do the Shotokan style of karate. In karate, a very important thing is what we call the chi. Like a lot of people read about it. Chita bhalo na. Or you say that use your chi. So what is this chi thing? Now, typically, when you speak to somebody who has done martial arts, one of the so-called fun things that they do is they can break a lot of things. So you keep a couple of bricks in front of them, they'll break it with their hand, or they'll break a coconut with their head. Now, you are a human being, I'm a human being. You have the same bones and the muscle that I have or anybody else has. So how is it that today I can break a brick and you very simply cannot? I mean, today if I ask you to break a brick, you will not be able to do that. But why is it that I am able to do it? And the thing is, it is because you are trained in traditional martial arts with what is known as chi. So the moment you can bring your chi out, it actually melts the brick like butter. So you can actually successfully break a brick without inflicting pain on yourself, or without feeling that hardness against you, and the brick breaks. Now we come back to what I was talking about. It is because out of those 11 million bits of information that was bombarded on my brain, my conscious mind processed only 40 bits, and I was very successfully able to eliminate the pain bit out of it. So the pain was not there. And because my hands are conditioned, you do conditioning in karate, so they become callous, they become stronger, your bones become stronger, your skin becomes harder, and that is the reason why it actually works like a weapon. So today, the reason why I'm giving you this example is because this is something which is very close to my heart, and I've seen it happen, and I know how important subconscious mind is. When we talk to people, do you realize when we talk to people, we actually attempt to touch on the subconscious? I mean, today, just think of it. I mean, because you're all youngsters, so very soon you'll be having a family of your own. So let us just imagine that maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, and you're married, you have a small kid or something. Now you're playing with your kid, right? And you have faced this yourselves, because your mother, your father used to say the same thing. So let us say the kid, a small child, is not behaving himself or herself. Now, What does the mother or father do? They don't really, go and slap that kid and say that, Eta Kurishna, this is bad. There are people who do that, but that's really not the way you bring up children. I mean, so you hug that person and you say that, don't break it because oro batha lagte pare, don't harm animals because they have a life too. They can feel the pain. So what we are trying to do throughout our life is when we talk to people, we use emotion and the subconscious mind in a very, very big way to communicate what our feelings are. So end of the day, if you can communicate feelings, you hit that person straight in the heart, and it becomes so much easier for a lot of things that you do. Negotiation becomes easier, union handling, I'm an HR person, union handling becomes easier if you can touch the subconscious mind. So the reason why I'm harping on this is because you tomorrow are going to be masters in how the mind works. And of course, nobody really knows how the mind works, but the more we can understand the nitty-gritties, the easier life becomes for us, I guess. And one of my favorite statements, which I do to maybe business management students and MBA students, or young professionals in general, I say that we always dream before we do. Every single activity that you do, it happens in your mind first. Whether it's getting up from, the moment you get up from bed, what happens? You get up from bed, okay, I need to brush my teeth. So I think of brushing my teeth, I get up from bed, I go to the bathroom, I pick up the toothbrush, I put toothpaste, and I start brushing my teeth. But every single activity is actually played in my mind, whether consciously or unconsciously. The only difference is that if I don't know how to do that activity, I will consciously think about it. So I consciously think about learning how to drive a car and how I should press the accelerator and release the clutch so the car moves without a jerk. I do this consciously, I think about it and I do it. And after a few days, when I become an expert, I do it automatically. But I do it, I definitely, it hits, it's there in my mind, I play it in my mind and that thing happens. So the reason why I'm saying this, it's very important that we understand, how strongly the limbic system or the subconscious mind works, because that is exactly where most of our emotions reside in. That is exactly where, we there's a difference between living your life, I guess, and existing in this world. So if you ask me, the difference would be, okay, in fact, this is something which I very recently talked to my team members in NSHM. I will share that thing again with you because it's a lovely bit of message. It is something which my father had taught me, and he had said that everything that happens in life, everything that happens in life is actually an event. So, it's raining, that's an event. There's thunder outside, that's an event. Suddenly you have a power cut and the room goes dark, that's an event. These are all events that are happening in life, But what we do is now we immediately assign meaning to these events. So when it rains, with my mentality, I know what I do. When it rains, I tell my wife that, okay, let's go out. Let's go out, get wet, because that is exactly what we used to do 40 years down the line, earlier as children. And we loved the rains. We loved the water hitting on our face. We loved getting wet. We loved getting drenched. We loved playing in the grass. Let's do it again. It's raining. Let's do it again. And my wife says, are you mad? 50-year-old and you want to go out in the park? The entire apartment building people will, think that you have gone mad. So the reason why I'm saying this is because the event is the same, but I assigned a meaning to it. My wife assigned a different meaning to it. That's great, but that's the way it works. So the learning in this is, if we can assign a better meaning to every event that happens, our life automatically improves. And as psychologists of tomorrow, that is the message or the key takeaway that every single one of you should be delivering to every single one of those human beings you treat who are in trouble and have come to you. Because, you know, the way I look at it, if you have done psychology, you are, you know, as good as a saint or a Pir Baba, you know, because you know the theory behind magic. And the reason why I say theory behind magic is because let me share with you some of the things which I don't know. I mean, I am not a trained psychologist, by the way. So, you know, obviously, you know, some of the things that I say may actually go against your understanding. So that's fine. But I'm just sharing with what I believe in. And I'm just sharing with you some of the things which I know to be true. So from a point of view of a psychologist, you know, like I said, we always dream before we do. So everything works on our mind before we, you know, take action. And why is it, and this is very important to me as an HR person, why is it that there are some people in this world who are extremely successful, some people in the world who are, you know, not so successful, but they have got everything that, you know, the other person also has got. Why is it so? Now, in my mind, there are four things, there are four elements which stops you from achieving your dream. Acha, just incidentally, Shiny ma'am, if you're there or any of the coordinators or the senior people there, see, this is an online session. So, you know, I sometimes, you know, feel like I'm just talking to a window. So
No, we are all there, sir.
okay, no, মানে আমার actually কি হয় এই অনলাইন
অস্বাভাবিক লাগে আর কি।
অস্বাভাবিক মানে আমার মনে হয় যে আমি এটা ভাগ বকে যাচ্ছি কেন but anyway, okay, so I just wanted a quick feedback that at least you're able to hear it. No, you can put your videos off, that's fine. I mean, I can figure out that you're all there. So we'll just come back to what I was saying, that what was I saying? You always dream before you do. And in my opinion, sometimes you don't achieve your dreams. If you ask me, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons why often you do not achieve your dreams. And in my opinion, the first reason is fear, bhoy. So fear constitutes about 60%. I mean, if you've got a small piece of paper or something, just note down the percentages, because you will see something marvelous at the end of these four things that I say. So you can just quickly note down that fear constitutes, if I recall right, about 60% of failures of dreams. And we'll come to this. Fear. Let us think of a situation where, you know, somebody tells me that, okay, can you do the Airtel marathon run? So I say, are you mad? 54 years old, I don't do exercises much. Airtel marathon run, my heart will give away, I will die. I cannot do the marathon run, so I don't do it. Why did I not do it? Because of fear. Fear constitutes about 60% of failures. The next is what I call erroneous beliefs. So first was fear, 60%. Next is erroneous beliefs. And that constitutes about 25% of the times when failure occurs. Now, what is erroneous beliefs? Erroneous beliefs is, you know, same Airtel marathon run, would you like to do it? And I say, no, I will not do it, because a 54-year-old person does not do Airtel marathon run. That is only done by people who are 30 years old. So erroneous belief, I mean, it's there in my mind that because I'm not 35 years old, I cannot do the marathon. I've never tried it. I have never tested myself to see if you know, I have the stamina or not. It's just my belief. 35 বছরের বেশি যদি হয় ও করতে পারবে না. So erroneous beliefs stops dreams. This is about 25%. The third thing is lack of knowledge. Lack of knowledge constitutes about 10% of the times when your dreams fail. So lack of knowledge. Let us say that the Airtel marathon run in Kolkata will happen on, just a hypothetical data will happen on 1st of December. Okay? That's information. Now I don't have that information. So I think the Airtel marathon run will happen in January. So I don't take any action till December. The marathon is over. My dreams are now broken. Why did it happen? Because lack of knowledge. I didn't know it. So that constitutes about 10% of the times. And the fourth is physical barrier. Physical barrier constitutes about 5% of the times where there is a failure. So now I say that both my legs are now amputated. I'm handicapped. I don't have maybe part of my leg available, and I am not yet into prosthetic legs and all that. So I am unable to run. Physically, I am unable to run. So therefore, I cannot do the Airtel marathon run. So this is physical barrier. This is about 5%. So if I just do a recap, and if you have been writing the percentages next to these four things, if some of you have written, just to recapitulate, fear was about 60%. Erroneous beliefs was about 25%. Lack of knowledge was about 10%, and physical barrier was about 5%. Correct? So if you add all of them, it is 60 plus 25. Ektu cha deben, please. I'm sorry, ektu cha deben. 60 plus 25 plus 10. So that makes it how many? 70, 80, 85, 90. 90, 95. So 95% of the times is covered by fear, erroneous belief, lack of knowledge. And 5% of the time is covered by physical barrier. So now you see where the fun lies. 95% of the times it has got nothing to do with your physical problem. So 95% of the time your failure occurred because of something which was there where? In your mind. And that's exactly what I want to tell you. So, that's the reason why, understanding how the mind works is so important. We should realize that 95% of the time we are not even taking the steps required, basic steps required to succeed. And tomorrow we say, "Arey or hoye gelo, amar holo na." That's because we never tried. Why didn't we try? Because our mind stopped us. So, as people who are into psychology, I don't know, you must have read this because I had read it a long time back. When we are born, we have just one fear. What is that fear? Fear of the unknown. So when a baby is born, she will be scared of loud noises. When ekdom chotto bacha, if you clap, she will start crying. She will get scared. So loud noises will scare a baby. Then sensation of falling down will scare a baby. Fear of the unknown scares a baby, right? Loud noise, sensation of falling. That is the only fear that every single one of us had when we were born. Now the fun part is we didn't have any other fear at that point of time. So every other fear that has come to our mind is something that we have taken into us as we started growing. So when we were children, we didn't fear. Bhoy chilo na. But with every passing day, we started getting scared. And because we started getting scared, Joydeep Goswami today gives an address and says that, okay, fear, 60% of the times you are failing. Why did we fail? Because of fear. Fear, but we had just one fear when we were born. Yeah, but then today you have 150 fears, so can't be helped. So that's the problem. A lot of it happens in the mind. I mean, today, if you ask me, my Mahamantra for life is very simple. I respect the past because I am today what I am because of what happened yesterday. But I don't think so much about yesterday. Why? Because I cannot go back to yesterday. I mean, today, it was so nice to come back to NSHM. We were there. I was there in NSHM at a time when, so many other things were happening. But today I cannot go back to 2009, 2008. I can only start today, 2021, and go forward. So past is something for all of us. It is there. It has made us what we are. But we should not, remain in the past. Those days were good. School days were good. That teacher was good. I came first in that class. That's great. But that does not make you live. Neither does future. Now, what does future do? Future is something which you just don't know about. You can just imagine. You can imagine a wonderful future, and I'm sure all of you will have wonderful futures. But it's not here yet. So you are just thinking about something, like I said, subconscious, imagining. You're thinking about what it can be, but it's not now. But then what is now? Now is every breath that you're taking. That's now. The fact that I'm talking with you and the words are coming out of my mouth, if I can feel that coming out, I am living for the present. So now every single one of you, you should start living for the present. When you live for the present, you will feel that life is not passing you by, but you have control over your life. Now, the way you look at it is, Didi Dorjata Bandhu Kedi. The way you look at it is there are two ways that you can lead your life. One, you let circumstances decide how your life will be, which is great. It is really great, because if something goes wrong, then you can always blame somebody else, that, it's because of her that this happened, or it's because of him that this happened, or it's because it started raining, I couldn't go out, or it's because, whatever. I was there in Afghanistan at a time when Taliban came, and therefore I got stuck in Afghanistan. Or you can say that, no, I came to, wherever, you're in India. So I had gone to Australia and the pandemic happened and I got stuck there. So I can start blaming so many other things, because I am letting circumstances, play with my life. I'm letting life happen and I am just part of it. That's one option that you have. You have another option also. And that option is what my dad used to say. Everything that happens in life is an event. You assign meaning to it. So what kind of meaning you assign is entirely up to you and your mind. Now, if you assign a good meaning, your life's great. If you assign a bad meaning, your life's bad. If you think that somebody else is better than you, you feel bad. If you think you're the best, you're the best. You understand? So the reason why I'm saying this is start taking charge of your life, because only if trained professionals and trained psychologists like you, who know how the mind works, if you start taking charge of your life, can you imagine what's going to happen tomorrow? You will be teaching exactly this to the people who come to you. So people will come to you and say that, I've got migraine problem. Okay, great. You have the power to cure migraine without medicines. You have the power to cure lot of things without medicine. I will give you a real life example of what has happened with me in the last 3 or 4 years. Now, before I rejoined NSHM, for a short period of time, I was working in the Heritage Group of institutions. So I think a lot of you would be knowing Heritage Group is behind Ruby. That's also got a lot of colleges, etc. Now, there was a motivational talk that I was giving to students and all. And one student came to me. He had been identified to go to Johns Hopkins, I guess. Anyway, he got a scholarship to go abroad and do his master's. एक to पढ़ाई में session है जी. to do his master's abroad. Now he was a fantastic student, fantastic. I mean, a straight A student throughout. Now the only problem he had was he used to stutter. You know, like he will talk like this. He will say, "So, my," that kind of stutter. So he could not speak clearly. And he said that, look, if I go abroad, I will not be able to make presentations and all. So then I said that, do you have a problem with your tongue? Because sometimes, you have that problem in the tongue where you can't move it, and also that leads to a speech problem and also. Do you have that problem? He said, no. So if you just recall that those percentages I gave, the 5% of failure because of physical disability was not there. So the immediate thought is that if it is not a physical disability, then it must be a mental issue. So if it's a mental issue, then we can think of a way to overcome it. And what we then did was, over a period, I don't know, I think we must have spent about 3 days or 4 days. And I taught him some breathing exercises, which are very good actually for articulation and all. And basically a little bit of bringing the chi out and all that was actually there. Take a deep breath. And how do you breathe? And breathing itself, I'll come to breathing, maybe take 2 minutes and tell you a little about breathing. That's very important. But anyway, we did a few breathing exercises, little bit of motivation, little bit of getting fears out of his mind. And this boy started talking. And believe me when I tell you this, because it is documented in that college, it took me exactly, I think, 3 days, and each chat with him was for maybe, I think, some 10 or 12 minutes. That's it. So we're talking about a 30-minute period in which a person who could not speak straight for the last 25 years of his life started talking properly. And the fun part was, he came, I was also called when he came to his professors to make his final presentation to go abroad, and he spoke marvelous. And I felt so good that I said that, his parents should have been here, and they should have seen it. And can you believe his parents came there to that classroom? And this is exactly what I mean. If you think of something very strongly, it's happened with me. It happens in your life. I don't know why, but it happens. His parents came to the class. His parents sat in that session, saw him talk, and the mother started crying and said, doctors could not cure him, but he's talking perfectly now. Now this boy is currently settled in the US, and I'm talking about this issue happened maybe about 3 or 4 years back. Coming back to the point, I said, it is important that you, every single one of you, know how to live. Because if you take some steps to improve the way you live, the advantage is you will be able to tell this and teach this to, a lot of people who come to you for help. And I think that will be, your success in the society. That will be your success in your profession. That will be your success for NSHM. Because just imagine, I know Shani ma'am and all the other people, the faculty members who are there with you. Tomorrow you share such a success story with us, we will stand up and applaud. That it feels so great. It feels so wonderful. Any gentleman participant?
Hello, sir.
What's your name, beta?
My name is Ujwal, sir.
Ujwal, so it's very nice to meet you, Ujwal. Can the rest of the team see Ujwal also?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Yeah, because actually I am not very tech savvy, so that is the reason why I actually, this is something I would have loved to do when we had a one-to-one session, but we were just talking about breathing, and of course the ladies can also do it. I took Ujjwal as a volunteer because I will try out something, and maybe Ujjwal can do it on video. The ladies can go home and try it. It is there for everyone. Let me just tell you something. Ujjwal, can you just maybe stand in front of your camera so that we can see you from your chin to your belt, something like that, so that we can see you, can you just, oh, okay, oh,
Yes, sir.
no, okay, hang on, you can just sit down, that is fine, that is fine, that is fine. Now, if you just take a deep breath, can you take a deep breath so we can see you? Take a deep breath. Leave your breath. Again, take a deep breath. Leave your breath. Okay, thank you, beta. You have solved the problem. Everybody has seen Ujjwal, right? Now, please observe me. I'll just go a little back and I'll tell you what I wanted to see. What Ujjwal did was, when I said take a deep breath, he said, leave your breath. That is exactly what happened.
Yes, sir.
Now, the other members, you don't have to try it, do it on your own. If I tell you to take a deep breath, you will do exactly like what Ujjwal did. Exactly like what Ujjwal did. So you tell anyone, take a deep breath, the chest will expand, the tummy will contract, the shoulders will go back, and then when I say that put your breath back, the exact opposite thing will happen. Correct? Now, is there any mother in the group, even among the faculty members? Is there any mother in our group here? Anyone who has a child?
Yes.
Anyone can come on video, please? Ujjwal, you can come out. You can come out of the video bit. I mean, you showed what I wanted to see. That was excellent. Thank you very much, Ujjwal. Very sporting of you. And I love the way you're wearing your Bermudas. Yeah, any mother in the group?
Sir, I am the mother of a
Okay,
two-year-old
great, Shiny.
dog.
Sorry?
Dog. Mother of a 2-year-old dog. Would that do?
Dog হবে কিন্তু human being হলে আরো better আমি বলতে পারতাম, but anyway, just be on, you can be on screen or come out. I just wanted everybody to see we have a mother here. That's great. The reason why I brought a mother in is because as a child, all of you must have seen a baby breathe. All of you must have seen a child breathe. Now, does the child breathe like the way Ujjwal did? The answer is no. The answer is no. So I don't know if you can see my tummy. If you can see my tummy, right? This place. Now,
Yes.
if a child breathes like this. Now look at my hand. A child breathes like this. You see what is happening? The tummy goes forward and comes back, not the chest. So the reason why I wanted, Shiny, if you want, you can come out of the video, no problem. It's great of you to come. So just to tell every single one of you, every single one of you is breathing wrong. Every single one of you has been conditioned in school when you are attending PT classes and NCC classes and all that you should have a shoulder like this. So take a deep breath, you do this. That's not the way you breathe. Because what you're doing medically is thoracic breathing. Thoracic breathing is when you're using your thorax, your ribs, to breathe. And that is not proper breath. In karate, you're taught, in any form of martial arts, you're taught how to breathe, because breathing is the first thing that changes your life. And the way you should breathe is with your abdomen. So what I can request all of you because it's a giveaway for this session, what I can request all of you is go home, sit down in a place where you're maybe comfortable and alone, and put your hand on your chest, on your tummy, and breathe and see whether this moves or your chest moves. What should happen is when you take a breath, your tummy should come out and your tummy should go in. Now, practice abdominal breathing. Tomorrow it will become second nature for you. I promise you that. If you do it on a regular basis, it becomes second nature. Your breath will improve, your stamina will improve, your immunity will improve. So you should do that. Now, the reason why I brought breathing into it is because your psychology student may have had some knowledge in biology, and this is exactly to, bring something esoteric and science together. We all know about, voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles, right? And cardiac muscles, of course. Now, voluntary muscles are those like your finger, you voluntarily move it. Involuntary muscles is, which happens without your thinking. But there is one activity in the human ecosystem, one activity which has got both voluntary and involuntary. Can anyone tell me what that one activity is? It can happen involuntarily, it can happen voluntarily. Can anyone tell what that activity is? Anyone?
Breathing?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Breathing is the only activity which is voluntary, it's involuntary. And that is the reason why, if you do yoga, breathing is important. If you do martial arts, breathing is important. If you do athletics, breathing is important. If you are a psychologist, breathing is extremely important. You know why? Because breathing is the one thing which can either be controlled by your limbic system, subconscious mind, involuntary breathing, or it can be controlled by your conscious mind when you breathe the way I told you to breathe. So the reason why I gave the example of breathing is a lot of mental ailments are cured miraculously by breath. The example that I gave you about how to make a person who stutters be able to talk, ask him to control his breath. And if you can get that person to control his breath, if you can control your breath, you can control your life. And end of the day, if you can control your life, you are in charge of what's going to happen tomorrow. And the reason why I gave you this talk is because I want you, every single one of you, to be in charge of your own life. Forget about other people. You need to be in charge of your own life. And I'm sure if this half an hour has had any impact on you, your life starts changing from tomorrow. So with that, I wish you all the best. If there are any queries, please come back to me. But I mean, it was really wonderful to talk to you. Any questions, I'm willing to answer. All yours.
Actually, I have one question.
Yes, beta.
So the breathing exercise which you just mentioned, is it? There are a lot of breathing exercises that I've tried, which are Wim Hof and Vipassana. I also did Vipassana, so there are also breathing exercises which were taught there. So is it the same with the breathing exercises, or does it affect differently?
No, good question. But actually, when you talk about Vipassana and you talk about other, what should I say, technical exercises, there are lots of methods of breathing. Something will make your energy go higher. Something will clear your sinuses. So, different, like Kapalbhati. If you do yoga, there are so many things that you can do. Anulom Vilom. There are so many things you can do which has an impact on the physical body. Now, my point is, we come back to that same thing. It is just breathing and how you breathe, how you are utilizing those muscles, which has an impact on so many parts of your body. So my example that I wanted to give you was not any specialized form of breathing. This was natural breathing. You know, naturally, if you can breathe with your abdomen, I think that's the best thing that you can do. After that, you do yoga, you do anulom vilom, you do, you know, whatever. There are so many things that you can do. That's great for you, but at least make your natural breathing better, you know.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That cleared my question.
Anything
Thank
else?
you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now we would like to continue with our
Sir,
performance.
thank you so much for a lovely session. Yeah.